Good morning, everybody. We're here on NTI Day 1, and we're going to walk you through the 7th grade lesson, which is Lesson 2.3, Investigating Antibiotics.
Okay, so up until this point, we've been talking about patient 23. We've analyzed data about patient 23's gut microbiome and now have strong evidence that he is a victim of food poisoning or C. jejuni bacteria infection. This type of food poisoning is often treated with antibiotics, so today you'll evaluate evidence about the effects of antibiotics on the human microbiome while also learning more about how to argue like a scientist.
And before we go on, I just want to make sure that you can log on to the correct lesson. So you have went to learning.amplify.com. You have used your Google sign-in. And if you click Amplify Science over in that left corner, it's going to bring you to a page that looks like this. We're working from the microbiome unit, so we want to click right here. And it might take it a second to load. Once that pulls up, we're going to go to Chapter 2, Arguing the Benefits of Fecal Transplants, and then we're going to make sure that we are on Lesson 2.3 for today. Just like in class, we want to start with a warm-up. So when you go to tab number 1, your warm-up, your screen should look almost identical to this. Mine's going to look just a little bit different because it's a teacher version. We're going to start out by critiquing two different arguments. Both of them answer the same question: why did patient 23 feel sick during week 3? But they have different answers, and we want to see which one is the best. So Mr. Combs is going to walk you through those two arguments.
Okay, so argument 1 is patient 23 felt sick during week 3 because he was infected with the C. jejuni bacteria. From the human microbiome article, I know that this kind of C. jejuni infection can cause diarrhea, vomiting, and fever, all the symptoms of food poisoning. These symptoms match the doctor's note for patient 23 for week 3. When patient 23 felt healthy during week 1, the C. jejuni bacteria was not present in his gut microbiome. So in week 3, when he felt sick, C. jejuni was present. Therefore, C. jejuni is probably the cause of his sickness. Now, argument 2. Patient 23 felt sick during week 3 because he was infected with the C. jejuni bacteria. C. jejuni is very bad for you. He probably ate something spoiled. My sister got food poisoning once.
So now if we go over here to the actual question, it says these two arguments both answer the question, why did patient 23 feel sick during week 3? Which of these arguments is most convincing? Explain your thinking below. And we've went ahead and typed you some sentence starters in there. We want to keep in mind that when we answer a question, we're writing in complete sentences. That means we start with a capital letter, we end with a period or the appropriate punctuation mark. So the argument that I think is most convincing is blank. So you're going to pick argument 1 or argument 2. I think this because blank. And then once you are finished, down here in the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to hit hand in. This hands in your assignment so that I can grade it and I can give you some points. If you've not completed the warm-up yet, I want you to pause your video right now, type your answer in there, and then resume your video once you have that finished. This is going to move us on to tab number 2, and you'll notice this says a teacher-led discussion. So right now, you don't have to type anything. You don't have to write anything down. You just want to kind of listen as we introduce you to argumentation. And we talked about this a little bit earlier in the year, so some of it is going to sound like a review, and that's okay. Just for your benefit, I'm going to flip back and forth between Amplify Science and a PowerPoint that we've created. So just kind of follow along, listen. All right, there we go.
Okay, so scientists ask questions and make observations. Then when they think they have an idea about having something work, having
Sorry.
Then when they think they have an idea about how something works, they make an argument to support that idea or their thinking. Scientific argumentation is the way that scientists communicate, evaluate, and revise their explanations about the natural world.
So we did scientific argumentation before. A lot of times on your open response questions, you might have answered a CER question where you gave a claim, an evidence, and reasoning. And that's what scientific argumentation is. Sometimes we'll say give a scientific explanation, but you're still going to look at it from a claim, evidence, and reasoning viewpoint.
Okay, so here we've got a scientific argument. It always begins with a question. So here's 3 examples right here. So your first question is kind of what you're dealing with right now. Why did patient 23 feel sick during week 3? You've got 2 other examples there. Why did the plants on one side of the mountain survive while the plants on the other side died? Or the other example, why is the explanation for why so many people became sick in one city? So a scientific argument begins with a question.
And there's one other question or example that I want to throw in here, because our kids, they're always trying to convince us that they want another puppy. Yeah. So our question could be, why should we buy another puppy? And we'll talk about evidence and reasoning that could go along with that as we go. If we go on down to slide 102, this is just saying again that a scientific argument is going to begin with a question, and then it has a claim that proposes the answer to a question. And this is what we've talked about in class all year. Once you're given a question, you answer with a claim. That's your answer. It has to be in a 1-sentence statement, and that's all you have to give. So here's our example. If we relate that back to patient 23. Our question, why did patient 23 feel sick during week 3? Our claim or our answer, patient 23 felt sick during week 3 because he was infected with the C. jejuni bacteria. And again, it's just really simple, and it's only 1 sentence. It answers that question that you were given. And then the last thing that you'll do as we're going through scientific argumentation is that you will give your reasoning. And notice that the reasoning right here is going to be in orange. And we see that it almost makes this circular shape. It connects everything together. And that's what your reasoning should do. So we start with our question. We come up with a claim, which is
that's a proposed answer to the question.
And then we give our evidence. Our evidence is our proof. It is used to support our claim. Why are we right? What makes us right? And usually in science, that's going to come from data in the forms of charts, in the forms of graphs. And then the last thing we're going to do is our reasoning right here. It's going to connect everything together. Your reasoning is going to be your vocabulary words. So up until this point, we've used vocabulary words like microbiome, microorganism. We've talked about things being microscopic. So we would use vocabulary words such as that to tie everything in together or tell how or why something works.
Okay, so this brings us to tab number 3. This is where we would be doing a card sort activity with your group. So when we're not at school, we're going to walk you through that.
Okay, so up until this point, we've talked about patient 23's gut bacteria. And we said in week 1, if we look at that pie chart, we know that they were feeling normal. They felt healthy. And then in week 3, we know that they had started to vomit. They had diarrhea and they had fever. And we can see from our evidence, so this is going to be our proof, that we now have a slice of the pie chart that is orange. And this is where we start to see that that patient's microbiome has changed. C. jejuni is now present within their gut. I'm going to flip back over to this slide just 1 minute. We want to continue that work that we've been doing for the Microbiome Institute. We want to focus on antibiotics. How do they change the microbiome? So our main question for today, how do antibiotics affect the microbiome? We have looked at week 1. We've looked at week 3. Now we want to see what has happened in the future once they've started those antibiotics. And we want to apply this to scientific argumentation. So here's our question. How do antibiotics affect the microbiome? And here's a claim example. Antibiotics cure infections by killing all types of bacteria in the body, including the harmful bacteria that causes the infection. Now, as we are going through making claims and giving evidence, we need to keep the terms relevant and irrelevant in mind. Relevant is going to mean that it addresses the question and it can help the scientist decide whether or not the claim is supported. So it relates to our topic. Irrelevant is going to be information that does not relate to the question. So the puppy issue that we were talking about earlier, our kids keep saying that they want us to buy them another puppy. So if we ask them the question, why should we buy you a puppy? And they make the claim and tell us that if you buy us a puppy, we will take care of it. So that sounds like a pretty good deal to me right now, but they need to give us some evidence. And when they give me that evidence, it needs to be relevant. So if Lakin comes to me and she says, Mommy, but the puppy, it's just so cute, it's so pretty. Does that relate to her taking care of the puppy? No. So that would be irrelevant information, and it's not going to give you a good argument. So I could just look at her and say, yeah, it's cute, but what does that have to do with you taking care of it? So when my kids come to me, they need to come to me with relevant information. They need to say, if you buy me a puppy, I will take it for a walk every day.
I will feed it and water it every day.
Because that's them telling us how they're going to take care of it.
Okay, so you've looked at relevant and irrelevant information. So over here is a claim that I'm going to read to you, and then there's 3 questions that you'll be doing. You would have done it as a group, like in class, but we're not there, so you're not going to do it like that. So the claim is antibiotics cure infections by killing all types of bacteria in the body, including the harmful bacteria that cause the infections. Okay, so these 3 examples, what you're going to do is say they're relevant or irrelevant. So number 1, one patient who used an antibiotic found that the bacteria infection on her arm went away in 5 days. Number 2, bacteria can live on rocks. Or 3, when people exercise a lot, they usually feel healthier. So number 1, I'll give you a little bit of time to write something down, if it's relevant or irrelevant.
We will give you the hint, though, and tell you that there is only one that is relevant.
Shh, no hints.
It relates to the claim. It supports the claim. It's on the same topic. Okay.
All right, that's enough time. Good. Okay, so one patient who used an antibiotic found that the bacteria infection on her arm went away in 5 days. So, number one, that is relevant because the patient who used the antibiotic, so in the claim we're talking about antibiotics curing infections, they found that the bacteria infection in her arm went away. So, with the use of antibiotics, that supports your claim. All right, number two, bacteria can live on rocks. That is not relevant information.
So this one would be irrelevant, even though it does talk about bacteria. It's not talking about how bacteria is affected by antibiotics or how antibiotics help a person get better. So even though it tells us where bacteria can live, it's going to be irrelevant to the claim. And then number three, when people exercise a lot, they usually feel healthier. Relevant or irrelevant?
I say irrelevant.
Irrelevant because this one doesn't have anything to do with antibiotics. It doesn't have anything to do with bacteria, but it is talking about how people might be healthy. But again, we have to make sure that it connects completely to that claim. So here, the only relevant statement you are going to have is number one. Okay, guys, this is going to get us to tab number 4, student-to-student discussion. If you were in school right now, you would be looking at this pie chart and seeing how has it changed from week 1, week 3, and now looking at week 5, discussing that with your groups, and then coming up with an answer. If you are on tab number 4, down here at the bottom of your screen, you need to click on that number 2 so that it will show you the correct pie chart. I'm trying to zoom in just a little bit. So we know that if we take antibiotics, in earlier lessons we said it completely changes the microbiome of a person. Antibiotics kills not only the bad bacteria that would cause an infection, but it's also going to kill the good bacteria. This shows us after week 5, we have given a treatment of antibiotics to patient 23, and now they're not feeling well again. Look at how that pie chart has changed over time. Now we've got a lot of blank space in here. We know that a lot of the bacteria was killed off. But the good thing about bacteria, it's going to grow back, but your microbiome isn't going to be the same. The amount of certain bacteria that you might have had before are going to be different. The actual types of bacteria that you had before are going to be different. So this leads us to your question for tab number 4. Observe what happened to patient 23 during week 5 after he was treated with the antibiotics. What did you notice? How do you think antibiotics affected his microbiome? And again, remember, we want to make sure that we type in complete sentences. So, I noticed that, and then I think this affected his microbiome by, and then you tell how you think that affected his microbiome. And then on your screen, you're going to hit hand in. This sends your work to me so that I can grade it. We're going to hit hand in. It gives us this confirmation up here at the top. And then the last thing that you're going to do today is going to be on your homework tab.
Okay. So on your homework tab, you've got, what do scientists who study the human microbiome hope to achieve?
That's going to be your overall question. You're going to find this answer from reading an article. It's titled Meet a Scientist Who Studies the Human Microbiome. So you're going to click that, and when you do, it'll open up a new tab. And remember, if you don't want to read this, or if you struggle with reading,
it will read to you.
The nice thing about Amplify is it will read for you.
Yes.
But you have to hit that play button. So right here, if you hit play,
Meet a scientist who studies the human microbiome.
It will read that for you. You're going to read through this article, and I want you to annotate this article like we had been doing in class, which means if you come to something that you think is important, you're going to highlight it. And as you highlight it, you're going to make a note out to the side. This shows us that we are carefully thinking as we're reading, and we know if we do that, then we're more likely to remember something. So you're going to work your way through this article, annotate it, and make sure that you type in your answer right here to what do scientists who study the human microbiome hope to achieve, and then you're going to hit hand in. So I think we're pretty much done for today, right?
Maybe.
So this is going to conclude our lesson today for 2.3. We're going to try to make you one of these videos each day. Again, if there's something... Sure. If there's something that you...
Video.
Okay. If there's something that you don't understand, we want you to either call that NTI helpline. We want you to call the school. 666-7511. Lakin wants to say hi.
You can also email us if you want to. And I think you can probably ask questions on Google Classroom also. Just type on your Google Classroom. We'll see it as a class, and we can answer those questions.
But we're still here all day long if you need that extra help. We don't want you to get behind, but again, you have to reach out to us. You have to ask those questions if you have them.
Very important not to get behind.
So
it'd be hard to make up 2 or 3 weeks of work.
True. We're going to go ahead and log off. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Tell them bye. Say bye.